This video, I guess I want to talk kind of about death and life after death and heaven and hell and stuff like that. I grew up a Christian, more specifically a Roman Catholic, so like 99% of people who grow up in America, I was taught to believe that when we die, if we're decent people and believe in the right things, we'll go to heaven and get to spend eternity in a setting that's akin to an amusement park with our relatives and hang out there forever and I don't know, hang out with Jesus and the angels as well and an eternity of bliss and all that. That type of belief has become a staple of Western culture and Western mythology, not just heaven, but hell and even purgatory. Our mythology, our literature, art, and music is riddled with themes about the afterlife. And because it's something that we've been told at a really young age. And it hits really close to home. When I became an atheist, which was only a few years ago, that was one of the most difficult things for me to get over, was the promise of an afterlife, because loss is never easy. We all lose the people we love. It's not a matter of if, but when. Everyone you know will die, whether they die before you do or after you do. Nonetheless, this will all be gone someday, and the earth will continue on without you. And it's quite despairing to think of life in terms of it just being finite, especially when you've been taught to believe in the afterlife for your entire childhood. You forge all these relationships, some of them lifelong, with your parents and your brothers and sisters and friendships. And it's painful to consider that when all is said and done, it really isn't that meaningful. It's just all going to end, and you'll never see these people again. And so the promise of the afterlife hits very close to home for many believers. It did for me, especially losing my father to cancer at age 11. Um, that was one of the things that kept me holding on. You have my mother and your friends and the preachers and teachers all telling you, that the day will come where you'll see him again. You'll see your father again. Because losing him at age 11, that was a big deal. Your fathers and your mother are the, foundations of your life, basically. So it was like losing half of you. And I always coped with it, tried to cope with it by looking forward to this potential future where I'd be reunited. And I've lost other people. I've lost all my grandparents. I lost my best friend when he was 18 years old. And so there's been a lot of that. And that coping mechanism, that promise of an afterlife, and if I do the right things, I'll get to see them when I die, and it'll be like one big family and friendly reunion for all eternity. Letting go of that was extremely difficult. And I don't think many believers understand that when they have discussions with atheists. They say silly, stupid shit like, oh, you're only an atheist because you want to do what you want. You want to get drunk every night and have sex with women, and you don't want to obey God's moral law. Or you're just angry at God, or you don't understand God, or you must really believe in God. Everyone does. How can you look around at all this wonderful design and not believe in God? Believers don't take atheists very seriously, which is why they're able to dismiss us with these cliche objections. And nothing makes me angrier than that, because leaving behind theism was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do. Because if, like me, you've lost people in the past and you looked towards heaven for this promise of being reunited with them, letting go of that dream and that promise involves reaching into your subconscious, into your memories, and ripping it out at the roots and changing what you believe about what happened and about those you lost in the past. You have to come to terms with the fact that everything you believed for so long is fundamentally untrue. And nothing is more difficult than that in life. It's not like you just wake up one day and decide, I want to be an atheist, so I'm going to do that. No, it takes a lot of psychological work. The afterlife, I see why that's a motivating factor for so many people to continue believing in religion. Even if they know that the religion doesn't make any sense, even if they don't really understand it, we're all terrified of death. And when I hear someone say, I'm not afraid of death, I think they're simply a goddamn liar. I don't believe a word they're saying. If they have that much belief that they're going to continue after they die, I could see how that could make it easier, but it doesn't make death any less more mysterious, and we fear what we don't understand. So death is frightening. Or I would say that if you're not afraid of death, then you really haven't sat down and thought about it. But hey, I could be wrong. But when it comes to the afterlife, I was really hopeful that I would get to see these kind of spiritual versions of my father and my best friend and my grandparents. Kind of like the movie show. When you die, your spirit, which is kind of like a carbon copy of you, your body, your personality, will float off into the light, and you'll be greeted by Jesus and the angels and all the wonderful people you've ever lost, assuming they're all there in heaven. We never like to think about the fact that if there is an afterlife, maybe our parents and our brothers and sisters are all in hell. We all assume they're in heaven, which is interesting and convenient. But to continue, there's several fundamental problems with any idea of the afterlife that incorporates the belief in a personal, subjective continuation. I find it perhaps a lot more possible that reincarnation is the case, or that when we die, our personality doesn't survive death, but maybe some form, some vague, unidentifiable form of our consciousness goes on and merges into the whole. It's really hard to describe such a thing, but I would find that more possible. But the idea of a personal, individual, subjective soul that holds your personality and your memory, that's just a kind of ethereal version of yourself that has all the same likes and dislikes, as you did when you were alive. The idea of that carrying on is not only ridiculous and absurd, but it's just unthinkable. Consider this. When people often get into car accidents, or they get blunt head trauma, fall into a coma, and their entire memory and personality is erased. And in the way I've heard some people talk about spirits and souls, they talk about it like your spirit it contains your memory and your personality. If you float off to heaven and see your grandma and grandpa, obviously you have to be able to recall and remember who these people are. In the case of people who go into comas or have brain damage, it's not that they just kind of forget for a little while their life. No, all the past memory, all that personality is completely erased, because your memory is all held in the brain physically. It's physically imprinted, and that changes when you have head trauma. And so it's all literally erased forever. It's gone, your personality and your memory. So if all of that, all of your individuality, all of the stuff that makes you, who you are as an individual, your tastes and distastes, your opinions, your memories, if all that can become erased, even on Earth, in the case of head trauma, how could you ever suspect that an individual version of yourself could survive death? We know that sometimes your personality and your memory can't even survive life. So to think that some kind of subjective version of yourself survives death is just unfeasible, in my opinion. It can't be thought of. People like to imagine that perhaps their memory or their personality is separate from their brain, that their consciousness is not tied directly to their brain, and that survives after death. But a baseball bat to the head, or a car accident where you get head trauma, will quickly prove to anyone that memory, personality, and consciousness are all directly tied into the physical brain. If you mess up the physical brain, you're going to mess up personality and memory and all those things. So surviving death in a personal form, it just doesn't make any sense. So it became literally, unbelievable to me, the idea of my individual soul floating on to heaven when I die, and meeting people that I remembered and liked from my life, and they still have the same personality, except now they'll live forever and they're perfect. It doesn't make any sense, because all of that, all of who we are, all of the things that make us individuals are in our physical brain, and that dies when we die. And so all of that, personality, memory, it goes away with it. So you have to ask, this whole idea of a spirit or a soul, what is it? It's not anything. The thing that you call I or myself, what you're referring to is your memory, your personality, your perception, all the things that make you who you are. And all of these things cannot survive death because they're dependent upon the brain. So if memory doesn't survive death, if personality and individuality and preferences and tastes and distastes don't survive death, then what does? What is the spirit? Because it's not you, because you are your physical brain. So that's always been my biggest question to people who believe in the afterlife is what survives death? Because it's not you, it can't be you, because your brain dies, and your brain is what makes you who you are. So that's always kind of boggled my mind. So what is the soul? What is the spirit? What exactly survives death if it's not you? It can't be you because you are here, and this dies when you die.